Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're not just talking about an app.
No, not at all.
We are talking about, I think, a cultural operating system.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the notes for this, and it really hit me.
Mm-hmm.
We're discussing a piece of software that lightly sits on the home screen of almost every single person listening to this right now.
Absolutely.
But calling it software, I mean, it feels almost insufficient at this point.
It really does.
It's a platform that didn't just change how we take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
It fundamentally rewired how we communicate, how we perceive our own bodies, and you could argue how we process reality itself.
Yeah.
We are, of course, talking about Instagram.
And it is, it's almost impossible to overstate the magnitude of this platform. If you look at the sort of cultural anthropology of the last 15 years, Instagram is the dominant thread.
Right.
It shifted the entire internet from a text-based medium, blogs, status updates,
Sure.
to a purely visual one. It created entirely new economies from scratch. The influencer economy, the creator economy, these things, they just didn't exist in this form before.
Yeah.
And now, sitting here in 2026, it finds itself at the center of these massive global debates about mental health, about censorship, and the very fabric of democracy.
And the sheer scale of it is it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
We are talking about something that started as a tiny, kind of confused startup in San Francisco with a handful of people.
Mm-hmm.
And now, under the ownership of Meta, it has billions of users. I mean, it's influencing elections, it's dictating beauty standards across continents, and as we're going to see, it is constantly shape-shifting to keep our attention.
That evolution is what we really want to focus on today. This isn't just a history lesson. Our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the trajectory.
Exactly.
We're going to look at the history, yes, but we also want to look under the hood at the hidden mechanics. The algorithms and the psychology that keep us scrolling.
And the controversies. We have to look at the controversies that have plagued the platform, from the mental health crisis to all the allegations of censorship.
And we are going all the way up to the present day. We're looking at the major updates from 2025 and even early 2026 that have changed the app yet again.
Yeah, we've got a massive stack of source material here. We're pulling from extensive documentation of Instagram's history, records of their future rollouts, legal filings from their many, many battles.
And some very, very revealing internal research leaks.
Yes.
It is a really comprehensive look at how a simple photo app became, for lack of a better word, a global superpower.
So let's do it. Let's rewind the clock.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the very, very beginning.
Okay.
Because before it was the polished billion-dollar giant we know today, it was actually a clunky little prototype called Burbn.
Chuckles. Burbn, yes.
And no, that is not a typo. It was spelled B-U-R-B-N.
Right. This was 2010. Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger were the founders, and they were building this thing as an HTML5 mobile web app.
Okay, so let's break that down.
Yeah, for those who might not remember the tech landscape of 2010, HTML5 mobile web app is kind of a fancy way of saying it wasn't a native app.
Right.
You didn't download it from the App Store and have it run smoothly on the metal of the phone. It was basically a website trying to act like an app.
Which is just amazing to think about now. And the concept, it wasn't even photos, really.
No, not at its core.
It was a check-in app. It was trying to be Foursquare. You would go to a location, check in, earn points, maybe post a picture of your whiskey.
Hence the name Burbn.
Exactly. But it was complicated. It was messy.
It was incredibly cluttered. And this brings us to one of the most critical moments in tech history, the pivot.
The famous pivot.
They had this app, Burbn, and they did something very, very smart. They didn't just keep adding features to try and make it work. They looked at the user behavior data. They asked, what are the few hundred people actually doing on this thing?
And I love this part of the story because it just shows the power of observation.
It really does.
They realized that the checking in part was, it was a commodity. Foursquare had that lockdown. Nobody cared about the points.
No.
But the users on Burbn were obsessed with the photo sharing aspect. They were ignoring all the game mechanics and just posting photos of their coffees, their dogs, their weekends.
Exactly. The communication wasn't, I am at this location. The communication was, look at this thing I am seeing.
Yes.
So they did the classic startup pivot, but they did it ruthlessly. They stripped everything else away.
Everything.
No more points, no more complicated check-in mechanics, just photos, comments, and likes.
That was it. And they needed a new name, so they combined Instant Camera and Telegram.
And you get Instagram.
A portmanteau that perfectly described the utility. sending an instant image.
And it's an iconic name.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we have to mention the first post. This is a real piece of internet history. It wasn't, a celebrity selfie or
Yeah.
some carefully curated brand shot.
No, it was remarkably mundane, which I think fits the early vibe of the app perfectly.
It really does.
On July 16th, 2010, Mike Krieger posted a photo of South Beach Harbor at Pier 38. It was just a test, essentially.
A picture of a boat and a dog's foot, I think.
Something like
Yeah.
that. But that was the smart. That was the first gram.
And then came launch day. October 6th, 2010, they released the app on iOS. And it wasn't a slow burn.
No, it exploded.
Completely.
They had 25,000 registrations on day one. I mean, that is virtually unheard of for a social app without a massive pre-existing network like Facebook to leverage. And a lot of that initial appeal came down to a very specific constraint that they introduced, which I think is really the secret sauce of early Instagram.
The square.
The square.
Oh, the square. I honestly miss the square sometimes.
Me too.
For the younger listeners, or anyone who joined later, Instagram used to force you to crop everything into a perfect 1.1 square. And the resolution was tiny.
It was 640 pixels by 640 pixels. That seems incredibly low res by today's standards.
It's nothing.
Your smartwatch probably has a better screen now, but there was a technical reason for it. That matched the display width of the iPhone 4 at the time.
Right, so it fit perfectly on the screen.
But aesthetically, it did something very, very interesting. It mimicked the look of old Kodak Instamatic cameras or Polaroids. It gave everything a nostalgic, sort of artistic feel instantly.
It turned everyone into an amateur photographer. That was the genius of it.
Yes.
You didn't need to worry about the rule of thirds or landscape versus portrait. You just centered your subject in the square, slapped a filter on it, maybe X Pro 2 or Valencia, and suddenly your average lunch looked like art. It lowered the barrier to entry for content creation so dramatically.
And that aesthetic defined the platform for years. It wasn't until August 2015 that they finally eased those restrictions and allowed portrait and landscape orientations.
5 whole years of the square.
But by then, the Instagram aesthetic was already established. That constraint, the square, it actually forced people to be more creative.
So the growth numbers here they're wild. They hit 1 million users in 2 months.
2 months.
They hit 10 million a year. And then came the Android release in April 2012.
The Android launch was a dam breaking. It was downloaded 1 million times in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
The demand was it was pent up. But almost immediately after that Android launch, I mean, literally days later, came the news that just shook the tech world.
The acquisition. April 2012, Facebook, now Meta, swoops in and buys Instagram.
For approximately $1 billion in cash and stock.
$1 billion.
To understand why this was so shocking, you have to look at the context of 2012. $1 billion for a mobile app with 13 employees.
13.
And zero revenue.
Zero.
It seemed completely insane. People were comparing it to Yahoo buying Flickr years earlier for just, $35 million?
Right.
The jump from $35 million to $1 billion felt like a bubble bursting.
I remember the headline so clearly. Mark Zuckerberg is crazy. What is he buying? People thought it was just vanity.
They really did.
But in hindsight, looking at it from 2026, it might be one of the greatest bargains in business history.
It's not even a question. It absolutely is. If Instagram were a standalone company today, it would be worth hundreds and hundreds of billions.
Easily.
It secured Facebook's dominance on mobile for the next decade. At the time, Facebook was actually struggling with the shift to mobile. Their app was clunky.
It was terrible.
And Instagram was mobile native. Zuckerberg wasn't just buying an app, he was buying a future.
A foothold in the new world.
Exactly. And initially, he promised that Instagram would be independently managed. He wanted to keep the culture distinct.
And for a while, that seemed to be true. I mean, the founders, Systrom and Krieger, they stayed on board. But that independence, it didn't last forever. Tensions eventually rose, mostly about autonomy and Facebook encroaching on the app.
And just, integrating it more into the mothership.
Right. And both founders left in September 2018. That's when Adam Mosseri took over. And we really saw the app start to integrate more and more deeply into the Meta ecosystem.
But before we get to the modern era, we have to talk about the feature wars.
Oh, yes.
Because Instagram didn't just grow by inventing new things. They grew by being absolutely ruthless about competition.
This is a defining characteristic of Instagram's strategy. Innovation versus borrowing.
Borrowing is a very polite way to put it. And the most famous example is, of course, stories.
2016. Snapchat is the cool new kid on the block.
Untouchable, it seemed.
Yeah, teenagers are flocking to it because of the ephemeral nature of it, photos that disappear. It felt raw and authentic, unlike the curated perfection of the Instagram feed.
And Instagram was scared.
Terrified.
They were terrified. Snapchat was eating into their engagement with the younger demographic. So Instagram launched Stories. And they didn't even try to hide that it was a clone.
Not even a little bit. It was the exact same mechanic. Disappearing photos and videos in a sequential feed, accessible for 24 hours.
The circles at the top of the app, everything.
I love the quote from Kevin Systrom when he was pressed on this. He didn't deny it. He basically said, look, everyone has wheels.
Right. He was referencing the auto industry. His argument was that the format, the ephemeral story, was like the wheel.
Okay.
Just because someone invented the wheel doesn't mean you can't put wheels on your car. He admitted Snapchat deserved all the credit for the invention.
Look.
But he argued that execution is what matters.
And their execution was lethal.
Completely. By 2017, just a year later, Instagram Stories had 200 million daily users.
And how many did Snapchat have?
That was more than Snapchat's entire user base at the time.
Wow.
They took the feature, put it in front of a much larger audience, and essentially won the war. It was a masterclass in platform power.
But not every copycat move worked out so well for them.
Oh, no. Remember IGTV?
IGTV. 2018.
A
Little orange button. That feels like a fever dream now.
It really does. This was their big attempt to kill YouTube. They wanted to capture the long-form video market, but they insisted on it being vertical video only. They thought they could train users to watch 20-minute videos on our phones vertically.
And the user said, no thanks. It was uncomfortable, it was awkward. Watching a documentary vertically just does not work.
It doesn't. It was a ghost town. They eventually just shut it down in March 2022. It's a really rare example of Instagram completely misreading the room.
A rare miss.
A rare miss. They realized that if people want long form, they go to YouTube. If they want short form, they go to, well, at the time, musical.ly, which became TikTok.
Which brings us to Reels, 2020. TikTok has taken over the world, and Instagram does the stories play all over again. They launched Reels globally in August 2020.
It's the same playbook. Short form, vertical, looping video, remix capabilities. But this transition was much, much rockier than Stories was.
Why do you think that was?
With Stories, it felt like an add-on. It sat at the top of your app. You could engage or not. With Reels, Instagram started forcing it into the main feed.
Oh, yeah. This was the infamous pivot to video of 2022 that made everyone so angry. I remember the petition. Tati Brinning, a photographer, started a petition called Make Instagram Instagram Again.
It was huge.
And all she wanted was to see photos of her friends.
And it went viral. Even the Kardashians shared it. Kylie Jenner posted, "Stop trying to be TikTok."
And when the Kardashians speak, the stock market listens.
It really does. Instagram had to walk it back slightly. Adam Mosseri put out a video saying they heard the feedback.
But did they really?
Not really. They never abandoned the strategy. They just became smoother about integrating it.
And looking at our notes on the 2025 updates, they are just doubling down.
Doubling, tripling down. In January 2025, they increased the Reels duration to 3 minutes.
Right, which is a direct response to TikTok increasing their lengths.
Of course. And the algorithm now is so heavily weighted toward video. If you are a static photo account in 2025 or 2026, you are fighting an uphill battle against the machine. The system just wants motion.
And we can't forget Threads, launched in 2023. That was their answer to Twitter, or X.
That was a fascinating launch. They leveraged the Instagram social graph, which was the genius part. You didn't have to build a following from scratch. You could just import your Instagram followers.
Which allowed for instant adoption. 100 million users in record time.
Record time. Although retention has been a different battle. But it shows the strategy. If a competitor exists, Meta will build a clone inside the Instagram ecosystem.
Okay, so we've talked about the features, but let's talk about what drives them. Let's go under the hood. The algorithm. This is the thing everyone loves to hate.
The big shift happened in 2016. Before that, Instagram was strictly chronological.
It's Nipple.
You saw posts in the order they were published. If you scrolled far enough, you saw everything. You could finish Instagram for the day.
I remember that feeling. It was so satisfying.
It was.
So why did they change it?
Well, their official line was that as the user base grew, people were following too many accounts. Their internal data showed that users were missing 70% of the posts in their feeds.
70%.
Including the ones they actually cared about. Their best friends. Their family. So they introduced algorithmic sorting to show you what they thought you wanted to see first.
And people have been asking for the chronological feedback ever since.
Non-stop. And to be fair, Instagram has reintroduced options. You have favorites or following feeds where you can get a chronological view.
But the default is always the algorithm.
Always. Why? Because the algorithm is better at keeping you on the app longer, and time on app equals ad revenue. It prioritizes engagement over recency.
It's as simple as that.
It really is.
Okay, let's talk about the psychology of the like. This is something Instagram has really struggled with. For a while, the like was the currency of self-worth.
It was. It absolutely was. And they knew it was toxic.
They knew.
Starting around 2019, they ran a massive experiment. It started in Canada first. They hid the like counts.
I remember this. You could see who liked your post, but the public number, the 1,500 likes, was hidden. And the goal was to depressurize the experience.
Right.
To stop people from deleting a photo just because it didn't get enough traction in the first hour.
Exactly. They wanted people to post for expression, not for the score.
Yeah.
The result was mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Influencers hated it because likes were their metrics for brand deals.
Of course.
Regular users, I think, felt a bit of relief. Eventually, they just made it optional. You can now choose to hide or unhide your accounts.
Which was sort of a tacit admission, wasn't it?
It was. It was an admission that the core mechanic of their platform, social validation, was causing psychological distress.
Speaking of distress, let's move into the darker side of this deep dive. We have to talk about the Facebook files. This was a massive leak in 2021 that really exposed what Meta knew about its own platform.
This was a watershed moment. The Wall Street Journal obtained a huge trove of internal research from within Meta, and the findings were damning.
They weren't good.
The company knew definitively that Instagram was harmful to a significant portion of its users, particularly teenage girls.
The statistics from that leak are they're chilling to read even now.
They are. They found that Instagram makes body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls.
1 in 3.
They also found that 13% of British teens who reported having suicidal thoughts traced the origin of those thoughts directly to Instagram.
That is a staggering number.
Yeah.
And the research highlighted a specific concept called social comparison.
Right. And this is where Instagram differs from, say, TikTok or Snapchat. Snapchat is about communication with your friends, making silly faces, being goofy. TikTok is about entertainment and performance. But Instagram is so often about lifestyle and body perfection.
The curated life.
And the internal research admitted that social comparison is worse on Instagram than on those other platforms because it is so focused on the visual presentation of an idealized self.
It's the highlight reel effect, right? You're comparing your behind-the-scenes mess to everyone else's polished, perfect highlight reel.
Exactly. And this leads directly to the Instagram face, this sort of homogenized beauty standard created by filters and editing tools. Everyone starts to look the same.
And it's not just the static images anymore, is it? The move to Reels has introduced a whole new addiction mechanism.
The dopamine loop.
Right.
Short-form video is designed to trigger these short bursts of thrills in your brain.
It's like a slot machine. Swipe up, maybe you get a laugh.
Yeah.
Swipe up, maybe you learn a recipe. Swipe up, maybe you see a cute puppy. You never know what's coming next.
So you keep pulling the lever. That is literally the psychological term for it. A variable reward schedule. And neurochemically, that is incredibly potent.
And what does that do to our brains long term?
Well, researchers have linked this to lower attention spans. It's becoming demonstrably more difficult for heavy users to engage in deep focus activities, like reading a book.
Because your brain is trained to expect a new stimulus every 15 seconds.
Exactly.
Another aspect of the dark side that I found really disturbing in the notes is this concept of sharenting.
This is a huge and growing privacy crisis. It's parents posting their children online. There was an analysis of the hashtag let it thumb a little. It found millions and millions of images where children's faces, names, and even their locations were exposed.
So these kids are creating a digital footprint before they can even speak.
And they have no say in it, no consent. It's a massive vulnerability.
And speaking of vulnerability, Instagram itself hasn't exactly been a fortress when it comes to security.
No, far from it. In September 2024, Meta was hit with a $101 million fine for storing hundreds of millions of user passwords in plain text.
Plain text.
Yeah.
That's security 101. You don't do that.
You don't do that. Normally, passwords should be hashed and salted, basically encrypted, so even the company can't read them. But this had been going on since 2012.
Since 2012.
It means that any employee with access to those databases could just read your password. It wasn't encrypted.
That's unbelievable.
And that's on top of the massive GDPR fine they got in Ireland in 2022.
How much was that?
$402 million, specifically regarding the mishandling of minors' data.
It's a pattern of negligence that is just, it's hard to ignore.
It is.
But it's not just about what they let slip through. It's also about what they actively take down.
Yeah.
Let's talk about censorship and moderation.
This is a minefield. Instagram's community guidelines have been criticized for being incredibly inconsistent, particularly when it comes to women's bodies.
The Free the Nipple campaign comes to mind immediately.
Exactly. Male toplessness is perfectly fine on the platform.
Sure.
Female toplessness is banned as sexually suggestive. But the line is so blurry, we've seen high-profile artists like Petra Collins have their accounts deleted for photos that didn't violate the letter of the law, but maybe violated the vibe the moderators were looking for.
Right, and Rupi Kaur, the poet, had that photo of menstrual blood on clothing removed.
She fought back, and Instagram eventually apologized and restored it, but it just showed how the platform polices female bodies so much more strictly than male ones.
And then there's political censorship. This is where it gets really geopolitical.
Yeah. We've seen these repeated instances where political speech just disappears, and Instagram attributes it to glitches.
The glitch excuse.
During the Sheikh Jarrah evictions in 2021 and again in 2023 regarding Palestine, users reported massive deletions of stories and posts.
And there was that auto-translate issue, wasn't there?
A huge one. The auto-translate feature inserted the word terrorist into user bios that contained the Palestinian flag and the phrase, "Praise God."
Wow. And Instagram apologized for that, calling it a translation error.
They did. But when these errors consistently happen in one direction, it raises serious questions for users about algorithmic bias.
Of course.
We saw similar things with Iran in 2020. Instagram removed posts mourning General Soleimani because they said they had to comply with U.S. sanctions.
So an American social media company effectively becomes an enforcer of U.S. foreign policy on a global scale.
That's exactly what it is.
And because of that power, entire countries are now banning Instagram.
It's a splintering of the internet, a splinternet. China has blocked it since 2014. They have their own ecosystem with WeChat.
Russia banned it in March 2022 after the invasion of Ukraine, labeling Meta an extremist organization.
Which is a very serious designation.
It is. In fact, as of July 2025, new legislation in Russia made it illegal to even access Instagram via VPN.
Wow. So it's not just blocked, it's actually criminalized.
Correct. Turkey even had a brief ban in August 2024 over deleted condolences for a Hamas leader. It just shows that Instagram is no longer a fun app.
Huh.
It's a political battleground where nations are asserting their digital sovereignty.
Okay, let's bring it home. Let's talk about the present day. We're looking at the landscape of late 2025 and early 2026. What does Instagram look like now?
Well, for one, the iPad users finally got their wish.
It only took 15 years. I honestly thought it was never going to happen.
Chuckles. I think we all did.
I
Yeah.
know.
In September 2025, they finally launched a native iPadOS app.
Before that, you had to use the blown-up iPhone version with the black bars on the side.
It was ridiculous, but they finally fixed it.
And they've launched some new standalone apps too, haven't they? They have. They released Edits in April 2025. This is a standalone video editing app.
Okay, so a competitor to CapCut.
A direct response to CapCut, which is owned by ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok. Instagram realized that people were editing their videos on CapCut, using their tools and templates, and then posting the final product to Reels.
And they want to own the whole process.
They want to own the creation tools, not just the distribution.
And the interface itself is changing.
This is the most controversial change on the horizon, I think. In late 2025, they began testing a Reels-first UI in markets like India and Korea.
And what does that mean, Reels first?
In this version, the Home tab IS Reels, the standard photo feed, the thing Instagram was literally built on, gets demoted even further.
So the transformation is complete. It is officially a video app.
Essentially, yes. And we're seeing them try to reclaim some of that social aspect with features like Close Friends. They actually launched a podcast feature, a series under the Close Friends only brand with celebrities, trying to capitalize on that feeling of intimacy. But the main feed, that is now a broadcast channel.
It's just amazing to think about the journey. We started with a square photo of a harbor in 2010,
Hmm.
and now we have a global video marketplace driven by AI, regulated by governments, and fighting for our attention every single second of the day.
It changed the definition of memory. We don't just experience moments anymore.
Well,
We curate them for an audience. We live life in order to create content about it.
that is a profound thought. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final provocation.
Okay.
With this 2025 push toward a Reels-first interface, Instagram is effectively abandoning the social network model, connecting with your friends, for a media broadcast model,
Yeah.
entertainment from strangers.
Right. It's moving from the social graph to the interest graph.
Exactly. So my question is this. If we aren't seeing our friends anymore, and we aren't the ones creating the high-quality video content that gets rewarded by the algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
are we still users? Or have we just become the audience for the algorithm?
Yeah. That's the question, isn't it? Are you the customer? Or are you the product being sold to advertisers while you watch videos made by strangers? I think the answer is becoming increasingly clear.
A little existential dread to end your commute. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Instagram. We will catch you on the next one.
Thanks for having me.